Hi y'all, it's Kimberly here. Well, it's very cold here in Texas. It's been very cold for the past few days. I think it got down to about 28 degrees. Well, it was a little bit warmer today. It was like in the low 50s, but we had about 2 or 3 days where it was very cold. And my heater doesn't work in my truck. I still haven't gotten that done, but I have so much I've been doing. I haven't posted for a while, but this is going to be a stimulus check update. There was a $908 billion package proposed, and I don't know, there's been so many little proposals, and I think most of them have been shot down, mainly by Mitch McConnell. He does not want to give the stimulus checks. He doesn't want to give the unemployment because he wants people to go back to work no matter what the safety guidelines or anything. He doesn't really care. He's not concerned with the safety of the employees going back to work. He wants to propose, or he has proposed, a legal indemnity for large companies and corporations for the safety measures that to keep them from being sued if people are forced to go back to work. Because if there's no stimulus checks, then people will have to just take any job, to survive, no matter what the safety situation is. And that's pretty much what he's been touting the whole time. And he wants to make sure that there's no way that employees can sue the larger companies. And he hasn't really done anything concerning the small business protection or grants or loans, specifically grants, because that's something you don't have to pay back. So a small business getting a loan at this point in time would be kind of like the kiss of death for them, I guess. It would not be a good, I don't think many small businesses can survive much more, maybe 6 months if the economy doesn't pick up, if we don't start getting some kind of payments. Even if you do send people back to work, many of them are not surviving. So with the number that have expired already, I think it's like 275,000 at this point, and we're just in the first week of December, and there's estimates of maybe 400,000 to, I've even heard a couple of estimates of almost 500,000 people. For one man to hold up all these checks and all this relief is just, I don't understand his psychology. I think that's just the cruelest thing ever, what he's trying to do. That's my personal opinion. But I think some of the people will be able to go back to work, but a lot of it's going to be like people who work in large places like, I don't know, warehouses or Amazon or, these multi-billion-dollar corporations. Those companies aren't going to shut down. There's always going to be jobs there, but there's always going to be the health risk. Are they going to survive, if we don't get a vaccine, or even if we do get a vaccine? That's one of the reasons why they want to push the vaccine, is with the mindset that we vaccinate everybody, and then they can all go back to work, and everybody will have immunity from it, from the COVID-19. And maybe this pandemic will fade away, like President Trump kept saying. It'll just go away on its own. It's not going to go away on its own. But the plan behind that was getting a vaccine. That's why he was pushing the vaccine so fast and talking about it going away. So initially, I think he really wasn't that concerned about the vaccine. He really thought it was just going to go away, like the common cold. And it wasn't. So they did have to start pushing the vaccine. And now they're pushing it even harder because They don't want to give stimulus checks, or Mitch McConnell and certain people backing him don't want to give out direct payments to citizens. They just want us to go back to work and just take the risk. But we are the working class. We're, like I say, we might be working in a warehouse or a grocery store or somewhere, exposed to the public. Fast food workers, there's a lot of exposure for us, and that's, it's getting worse until they do something. I do believe the vaccine will help a little bit, but we don't know what the side effects are. We don't know, is it going to be effective? It's a gamble, to take, that vaccine. I don't know if I would do it. I want to say that I would because I don't want to get infected. But, this is some medical treatment that they're just pushing through as fast as they can, and that's comes with a lot of risk, when you're going to use the whole American public for guinea pigs. So that's a personal choice I think each one of us would have to make if we want to take the vaccine, not that it be forced on us. I mean, it's a medical treatment. And I think every individual here in the U.S. should have the right to decide that, not just mandated by the government that we want you all to go back to work so these billionaires and millionaires can keep their huge, large companies and corporations running, and forget about the small businesses and all the individuals that are, expiring. Well, we'll just see what happens, Well, this is what's happening. Mitch McConnell got his let's see what happened moment, It's happening now, upwards of 275,000 people. So one of the biggest things is getting Democratic control of the Senate. There's the election in Georgia that's going on. There's two key Democrats that, if they're put into place, it will turn. The control of Congress and Senate will be Democratic. And in the event that we do get any kind of checks or any kind of help, it's going to be linked to something like that, because you've seen how Mitch McConnell and certain people behind him, they don't care. They're not going to give you payments. They don't want to give direct payments or money. They want poor people and working class people just go back to work no matter what happens to you. They don't want to give you any protection. Trump didn't do anything about the health care. He said it was too hard. Oh, it was too hard. So we didn't get that done. We don't have that. And the minimum wage, it's still stuck at $7.25. That's insane. That's not going to go up unless there's a Democratic control in the Senate. So if you want any kind of COVID-19 relief bill or any stimulus checks, it's going to come from the Democratic side, not from the Republican side. They're mostly concerned about making sure large corporations have total lack of responsibility for their workers with no health care or underinsured workers. It's just outrageous that all this is going on. I just can't believe, how it's being stalled specifically for those reasons. And I'm going to turn this light on. That looks worse. And it's getting a little dark here, but that's probably the extent of what they're working on right now. The main holdup is pretty much just passing the stimulus checks, because they just adamantly do not want to give stimulus checks. The Republican side does not want to give stimulus checks. There are some Republicans that are willing to vote for giving stimulus checks, but the majority do not want to give stimulus checks. They don't want to give unemployment that is more than, minimum wage, or, making more than, I think it was it was at $600 when they started passing out the unemployment checks, but it went down. I don't know. I didn't get unemployment checks. I think it was three or four. It got cut successively, and it's ending, I think, at the end of this month. I'm not sure, but they're arguing over that too. And the idea is that why do you pay people, why would they go back to work if you pay them more, than what the minimum wage is? And, I do understand that, but the thing is, you still have to understand people are maybe not going to survive at these jobs. So why would they go back, if there's so much health risk? And not everybody's perfectly healthy. There's a lot of people who have respiratory problems, asthma, breathing issues. And now that they've discovered long-term effects with your heart and there's all kinds of things that are coming out of this, from the coronavirus. There's all kinds of health problems that are popping up, and it sets in, and it can stay long-term in certain people. Some people, they call them long haulers, that are it's just getting dark out here. So they're just arguing mainly over that, and we don't know if that $908 billion is going to be sufficient enough to allow for stimulus checks and small business protection, or loans. Not so much protection, but I think more the grants, or either loans. I think the grants are more what the Democrats are pushing through, because if a business can't last a few more months, or 6 months probably would be kind of the register that they're kind of using right now, that a lot of small businesses may go under within this next 6 months. And it's already been, the small business community has already been decimated. I mean, it's just, like I say, so many of them have not recovered, and they're not going to go back into business not just because of the pandemic, but because of the aftermath of trying to reclaim a small business is very, very hard. And a lot of them just don't want to do it. They're, especially the older people that are starting to retire, and by this time, and they're already having health issues because they've been infected with COVID-19, and they don't know what their future is really, especially if they don't have health care or not enough health care. So a lot of the small businesses, that are down the street. I was looking through Facebook Marketplace for something, and I just started coming up with all these restaurant equipment. I mean, there was tons and tons of restaurants selling, already closed down, and they were selling, all their equipment, their freezers, their walk-in freezers, their tables and chairs, their grills, and their Coke machines, their ice machines. You could get them at a good discount if you wanted to start a business now in this area. But these are restaurants, they went out of business, and they're not going to open back up. And I was driving down certain streets, and all these shops that I knew that used to be there, they got for rent signs or closed down. And I mean, that's sad. I mean, I just don't know what to think. And a lot of these people start these businesses, later in life. They've saved a lot of money, and they've worked hard, and then, this happens. It's horrible. I can't imagine going through that, I think those are probably the two main things, are the stimulus checks and the small businesses. For the Democrats, they really want to protect the small businesses, because if these go under more and more, it's not just workers, blue-collar workers that are in, whatever jobs they're in. It's also the small business community. So you have that percent, the small business community plus blue-collar workers put together. That's a huge, huge amount of people that are going to be unemployed and will need assistance. It'll crash the markets. It's not going to be easy to recover from any of this. So I don't know what they're thinking. We can just, let these small businesses and working class people just jump ship and, survival of the fittest. I don't think that's a good plan for America at all. But I do think that if the election in Georgia turns Democratic, I think that'll be probably one of the biggest helps in getting the economy straightened out and getting people back into possibly a little bit more normal life once we start being able to, if we are getting the vaccines, if things do work out on that end, and then we financially are getting support on the other end. I think that's the only way we can really make it through this, medically with the vaccines and then financially. Those two things are the things that are clashing right now. People, they don't have the medical assistance. They're getting no vaccine, no health care. These people are struggling to even survive, and then people are struggling financially to survive. So those are two of the harshest things, in this pandemic. And I just think the only real relief is going to come from stimulus checks and protecting, small businesses. And I do know that large businesses, yes, we do need them, of course, but they have their own lifelines a lot more than small businesses. They have so much more ability to financially support themselves, and they have, some of these businesses have huge lines of credit. They can get a $30 million loan. A small business can't walk into a bank or a financial center and get something like that. So it's going to have to come from the government, from these plans, these stimulus check plans, or stimulus checks and the small business plan. That's got to be together. And I can't see dividing it up, putting small businesses on the side and then giving checks, because if there's not enough small businesses, we're only going to be supporting the large businesses, and that's no plan either. So we'll just have to wait and see what they come up next week, I guess. Well, thank you all for coming to my channel. Thank you so much.